Pan-Africanism needs culture in itself. We cannot be Pan-Africanists and Pan-African nationalists, yet we think that we can run Africa with colonial software. Pan-Africanism is a reflection and a response which the enslaved African who finds himself in the Caribbean and in the US after the abolishment of slavery, the reactualization, the rediscovery of the African to connect with his African roots. But core to that was the academic angle where the African is beginning to question, why am I here? Where do I come from? So lots of scholarship actually goes into the initial Pan-African conversation, which is not only, which could have started off as an academic exercise and a social transformative initiative to connect the Africans with each other first in the Americas. But as they started moving on further, they discovered their history is here. So we have a group that started moving over into the Egyptology and some of the African studies. Authors such as Hendricks and the Malcolm X's were social activists. The Martin Luthers were in the religious space. The Islamic movement, the Nation of Islam, and academic universities, students, Morehouse, colleges. So you have this conscious awakening of Africans beginning to find their identity. But when they came into Africa now, as of the last 20, 30, 40 years, you begin to see a different Pan-African because now culture comes into the fore, where initially they were doing the Kwanzaa in the US, which was almost like a sort of like I could say it was an echo of what Africa is doing. So they came up with all these timetables of how to celebrate themselves, Imani, Kwanzaa, Umoja, and all that stuff. But when you come to the continent now, you begin to find that Pan-Africanism needs culture in itself so that you build and you do a transition between Pan-Africanism and Pan-African nationalism.
Those are two different things.
Those are two different things. Because nationalism, now you're not dealing with building a nation out of the Africans on the mainland and in diaspora. And once you come to Pan-African nationalism, you're now talking of nation building. You're now talking of, so what culture are we going to speak in this, practice in this nation? What businesses are we going to be running in this nation? What form of governance, which is now the biggest challenge that we have on Pan-Africanism. We cannot be Pan-Africanists and Pan-African nationalists, and yet we think that we can run Africa with colonial software, inclusive to that, democracy, capitalism, socialism, with all the definitions of world governance systems as we know them. China is running on its own hybrid of how it wants to govern itself. Middle East is running itself the way it wants to run itself. Russia, they've come up with their own format of, but Africa seems to be trapped. We don't know whether we are socialists, we are capitalists, we are Ubuntu, we are, and I think that's where now we begin to find that we needed to redefine and hybridize our Pan-African conversation into a proper format through which we can bring up our children, we can run our governments, we can build up our curriculums for our education system, we can design our own business and how we want to transact. The issues of commerce, we start to be spoken about. So Pan-Africanism as a definition, it started off as a response, as a knee-jerk response to an unfair, oppressive environment.